Hey, everybody, welcome back to a special edition of Hops Geek News, where today we are going to review a 6-part miniseries that was sent to us, and it's called The Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia. It's like I said, 6-part miniseries about, well, we're going to dive into that in a second. But first of all, look for us on Hops Geek News on Instagram, Geek Hops on Twitter. If you are listening now, you found us. Just search Hops News, share,
Good
subscribe, leave a great review, or if you don't like us, leave a bad review. Whatever, just leave a review. Let us know how we're doing. And I'm Mash. This is the Hoppy Mommy with me, and we're gonna get real wrestling here tonight.
All right, brother.
Listen
I'm
here,
ready
brother.
to go, brother.
We're gonna wrestle tonight because little backstory to me. I love professional wrestling. I lived through the Attitude Era of WWE, and I also lived through the Raw Nitro Wars and Eric Bischoff, and this is all a comic book that you see a lot of those elements taken out of and put into. So we're gonna dive into.
You also have an
review.
alter ego that you may need to mention real quick. For
I
those who have not been
do.
following us long, we did have a little comic book competition against Hop Heroes back in, I think it was the end of September, so it's been a minute, and your little alter ego showed up called Hop Hogan, brother.
Yes. So listen here, brothers. I've got an alter ego. His name is Hop Hogan, and he's not here to play around, brothers. Yes, actually Hop Hogan's
Hop Hogan chugs beer.
Hop Hogan chugs beer. Hop Hogan's making an appearance here soon on the Jock Doc podcast. I'm not going to spoil any more than that, but Jock Doc is a podcast that is centered around medical, and you got to be selling something to the doctor, things of that nature. And so I figured, what better way than to introduce Hop Hogan back again? So that's my alter ego.
Guess who's back?
Without further ado,
Hogan's back.
Let's get started by what we're drinking. I'm drinking Attempted Murder by Bombastic Brewing. And if you're on YouTube, you can't see it because all you see behind me is a page from the wrestling comic. But Bombastic Attempted Murder, it's an imperial stout with vanilla and cinnamon, straight from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, where they filmed Dante's Peak. I'm going to tell everybody that all the time. Hoppy, what are you drinking?
I just cracked open a little La La Land. It's an IPA from Proof Brewing in our, I was about to say nation's capital, state's capital, Tallahassee.
Believe it or not,
I've only been to this.
Not the center of America.
Well, we might be because the rest of y'all are about to freeze over. But this brewery, I believe they've opened a new location since I've been, but I got to go there in 2017 and I got to see the Hurricanes beat the Knowles at this brewery.
Everybody beats the Knowles.
That was a fun game. Not everybody. Sometimes we lose to them.
Boise State was supposed to play the Knowles this year, but thanks COVID. Thanks for nothing.
Boise State's playing UCF September, I believe. You should jump on that flight. Just jump in the luggage.
Oh, that gives me
and I'll meet you for some tailgating.
And then we'll go to Disney.
Yay, Galaxy's Edge, a live show. All right, so back to wrestling, brother. So, actually, in 2017, there was a wrestling thing in Orlando, brother, and we had a big belt.
No, time out.
Oh,
you're not just going to say it's a wrestling thing. That was WrestleMania, okay?
I'm sorry, Tim.
It was WrestleMania.
I only know because I met Tim for lunch out there, and he made us take a picture under the belt.
It was in Orlando, and it was WrestleMania, okay? Because I had a friend who went. I wanted to go. The Bella Twins, and they wrestled John Cena. So it was John Cena and Nikki Bella. That's where he proposed marriage. I remember all this stuff, okay? So
with that being said, though, I would like to say, like, when we got this comic book, my first thought was, I'm not the target market. I'm not a wrestling fan. Yes, I do love comic books, but I'm not a wrestling fan. So I still read this comic, and the artwork was beautiful. The story is very good. And they even poke fun at themselves a bit. And I absolutely love anybody who can poke fun at themselves a bit. So, even if you don't love wrestling, don't just poo-poo this, under the rug. Give it a chance, give it a shot. And Matt's actually working on a comic book, and we're going to find this artist, and he's going to draw Matt's comic book because I fucking loved the artwork.
Yes. So this is Invasion from Planet Wrestletopia. It's a sci-fi comedy comic book miniseries about a disgruntled pro wrestler who declares himself galactic champion of the universe, only to have a planet of alien wrestlers view it as an act of war. So you can find this exclusively on Comixology. However, come May, they are going to be putting out a Kickstarter to actually get it traded in, like the trades made in print. I'll donate to this Kickstarter. I hope you guys take a look at this. We will make sure that we share artwork from the comic book on our socials, so that way you can see this, because like Hoppy said, the artwork is fantastic. That's what really stood out to me. The drawing, the colors, everything was really well done, and that can be attributed to, it is a creation by Ed Kuehnel, I hope I pronounced that right, and Matt Entin of Suspicious Behavior Productions. They are a production company that was founded in order to waste money, they say. And Suspicious Behavior, you can find them on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Just look up Suspicious Behavior. The series has been published by Starburns Industries Press, and it's a comic book publishing arm of Starburns Industries, the same animation production company that is behind Rick and Morty. So the artist is Kendall Good and Dan Shadkey. Colorist Gio Butler, Jason Lewis, Marissa Luis. Letterer Sal Cipriano. I hope I'm pronouncing all these right. I really apologize. And then A Larger World Studios. Production design is Conley Pressler and Jimmy Pressler. So, like we mentioned, it's about a wrestler who unknowingly declares himself as Galactic Champion, and that's kind of where our story picks up. Issue 1 is called A Date with Destiny, and basically in it, you come to find out this is like 15 years ago, where Rory Lander is a professional wrestler who was slated to win the belt. And if you know anything, wrestling, yes, it's fake, blah, 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 blah. They predetermine who wins. But a lot of times you don't know who wins until the final, like the referee gets the notion in his ear.
Final
and then
countdown.
also all the bumps and everything, those are 100% real. So people going through tables, that's all real. The product is, it's their entertainers. And so this takes place where he's supposed to win the belt. However, the promoter at the last second says, no, 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 Rory Landell, you're not winning the belt. And Rory gets really mad. He's kind of stewing over it with his manager, and he sees a pizza box that says Galaxy, makes it into his own belt. He does a promotion where he really shoots hard and says that he's Galactic Champion, and that's basically pretty much what the first issue is. He gets kicked out essentially. He leaves because the promoter was like, "Dude, what the hell was this about?" So he leaves, and
A lot of egos.
it's wrestling. So if you know anything about 90s wrestling, the first thing that jumped out to me personally was this has a lot of 90s vibes to it. And if you know anything about that, so early 90s
I
were,
love the Y2K reference.
yeah, so you've got a lot of vibes from Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, like all those egos that were in the locker room at this time. Wrestling was a really toxic culture back in the 90s. And so you had a lot of, it's a big bunch of sweaty dudes that are on steroids half the time, and they all think they're better than somebody else. And so Rory Landell loses his girlfriend here, announces himself Galactic Champion, and then you see him become an alcoholic who's going from place to place, getting kicked out, doing a bunch of house shows, and he's no good at it. And that's kind of what the first issue is about. I love the callback to old school wrestling. I really like the artwork, as we've mentioned already. Rory reminds me of Hogan, Macho Man, a lot of the wrestlers that I grew up with, even old school Rocky Maivia, or you know him as Dwayne The Rock Johnson. A lot of that.
I didn't know who that was
Yeah,
at all.
so
Wow.
Rocky Maivia
Interesting.
started out in the Nation of Domination, and he
Could you always smell what he was cooking?
no, because when he was in the Nation of Domination, he was just kind of like this character that was there, and then he eventually made a name for himself. But the promoter was slimy, as they all are. Even Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon is still slimy to this day. And Rory gets his own belt and becomes a washed-up alcoholic wrestler.
Not a cliche at all.
What did you enjoy
So
about this first issue?
I think you summed all of it up in the first issue, honestly. I love though you see, and I don't want to give too many spoilers because I do want people to want to read this, but I mean they
Yeah.
should want to see it solely
Well,
for the artwork.
the way I see it is
But
we're doing a review, right? So in a review,
yeah,
you're gonna
yeah,
spoil
that's true.
stuff.
We are
And
going to spoil things. But just
so
the fact that him declaring himself, oh, I'm the galactic champion, like this other planet was like, that means war.
this
But then
is war.
issue two was spoke to me more because it begins in Florida in the
It does.
1970s. I've lived in Florida my whole life, not in the 1970s. I'm not that old. I didn't exist then. But all good stories begin in Florida. Scarface, Tiger King. And it was a sneak peek at Rory's past. So we all need to make note that Rory is a Florida man.
Yeah, his dad was a wrestler who was basically an alcoholic who just tossed money to his
Of course he
ex-wife and
was.
kid and left. They lived in a trailer.
Find an egomaniac. And this, I will say, there are some misogynistic undertones to this, but again, it is the 90s. It's not overly blatant. It's not obnoxious by any means. It's actually very well done, but it's a good representation of the 90s. Where
Yeah.
in the 90s, we weren't being overly whatever, but it was a lot still there. I mean, you watch the first Superman and he makes a joke about the guy in the wrestling ring's husband making his costume, and
Well,
that was
if
Peter
you look
Parker
at
making that comment.
old school
Didn't age well.
wrestling, even in WWE, WWF, what do you want to call it back then, like they went through the Divas, what they called it, Revolution here, probably about 10 years ago. But up to that point, you had wrestlers like Tori Wilson, Sable. You had just they were just sex objects, right? That's all they were, and then
Right.
everything was
I
so
don't know who those people are,
misogynistic.
but
Well, just know that like the Attitude Era, basically, women wrestling was unheard of. They were just there for eye
mm,
candy. To 9-year-old me, though, great, but it really wasn't fair to women. And so now you're getting to really
now we got
showcase a lot of
Ronda Rousey.
she wrestled for like a year. No, Becky Lynch is the man, and she's
Let's
the
see, I
one
don't
true
know
wrestler.
anything.
You had people like Paige, who
I'm Jon
she,
Snow.
yeah, you had a lot of good wrestlers in the women's division, and you still really do. There's a lot of great wrestlers in the women's
Wasn't
division.
Ronda Rousey though a UFC, the Ultimate Fighting
Ronda
Champion?
Rousey was UFC, and then she came to WWE. She was there for like a year, and then she left because
But
she
that's
wants to
different
have a
than wrestling
family.
though, because they're really like
No,
punching
but
each
she
other
was
and
a
stuff.
wrestler though. She became a wrestler. She was a
Ah.
wrestler, and she wrestled Becky
My
Lynch.
favorite UFC character is Pete from Friends. You may know
Oh
him as
boy.
John Favreau.
Anyways,
Okay. But no, I thought this was great. I thought they did a great job. But yeah, they do the flashbacks to the 70s. I very much so enjoyed. But there's even a scene where his agent and it has is like, I gotta go find Rory once he sees that this like, they declare war on him. And his wife wants to come and he goes, you can't come. This is man business.
yeah.
But yeah, then the aliens find Rory first and they basically knock him out. And then you end up back into a flashback in the 70s of Rory buying a book. And you see him with the shirt on with the Rory's number one fan. That comes into play a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Well, also, what I liked about this too is that the aliens built a steel cage around Earth.
yes,
I
it made me
loved
think of
that.
Tony Stark because
It
that's
was
like what he
so
wanted to
great.
do.
Yeah.
Like he wanted to build a bear. As soon as I saw them doing that, I instantly was like, that's what Tony wanted to do. And he couldn't,
And
but they're doing it to trap us.
you really meet Manifest Destiny, who is the ultimate guy. He's the current galactic champion, and he's the one who really
From
decided.
Wrestletopia.
Yes, and so he shoots in on Rory like he's an old school. He has like the old school gladiator thing going on, and this is where the wrestlers they kind of invade Earth. So you have the Secret Service getting beat up by it's just like
Oh,
these
all over the
wrestlers.
world, people are getting their asses
It's
kicked by
great. They go to
alien wrestle
Cairo, they go to
people.
India, they go like you're on the White House lawn,
That Cairo
and
getting mentioned, yeah, again.
you have people getting suplexed, and it's just wrestler. It's hilarious. I loved it. It was great. It's just fun. It's a lot of fun, is what I have to say. And so basically, he challenges Rory, and if he refuses, there's going to be a Regal Rumble, and all their people versus all of ours on Earth, and it coincides with them beating up our Earth citizens. Rory gets into a bar fight with the wrestlers. He's delivering
But
suplexes,
he
but
still
yeah,
doesn't understand at this point what's happening. He
no, he's
doesn't
just an
realize he's
alcoholic.
fighting aliens. He's just like, "Oh, you're coming at me? Whatever, I'm going to
Right.
fight
And,
you."
he delivers some good suplexes, but then he gets knocked out, and he's also really hurt from wrestling, like his knees. He's got to keep pumping his
Right. That's a big
knees.
deal with him, yeah.
It is. And so that's kind of how issue 2 ends. Issue 3 rolls in. It's called Two Peas in a Pot, and Manifest Destiny raids the AWF, it's called, their headquarters. He threatens Dick Drassen, who is the promoter from a long time ago. He's the one who took the
And
belt
the
from
ultimate
Rory.
douche.
He's the ultimate dude. Oh, total
Of
douche.
course, his name's
Douche.
Dick. That wasn't
Yeah.
unintentional.
he thinks it's all a game because he's just a wrestling promoter. So he thinks it's a game. He's like, I want merchandising rights. I want pay-per-view. They're like, all right,
But
yeah,
that's one of the
whatever.
entertaining things. A lot of this, like, people don't realize they're dealing with aliens. They're
No,
like,
they're
"Oh,
just
these are some egomaniacal wrestlers," or,
we got
"They
these
don't this is
giant buff
ridiculous."
men wrestlers
Right.
running
"Don't
around.
worry, I got this. I know how to deal with these egos." And it's like, "No, you're dealing with aliens."
And this introduces one of my favorite characters, who's Minnie Macho, and
He's my favorite
yeah,
too.
so he's like a dwarf, right? He's from Mexico. He's a dwarf. He
I don't
reminds
think you're
me.
supposed to say that. He's a little person.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not mean to offend anybody. Let's
I
backtrack.
loved him. He was awesome because he's badass.
He's a little person, and he reminds me a lot of like Rey Mysterio and a lot of those luchador wrestlers who are like smaller, but they can really move and do a lot of athletic things. And so he saves Rory. He's doing flips. He's dropping flying elbow drops. Oh, he's like my favorite because he's just like chill, but at the same time he's really badass. He comes in and fucks shit up.
But he has meaning behind his fighting too, and, like,
He
they do
does.
the little, like, glimpses on backstories of other wrestlers other than Rory,
Yep.
so I'm wondering if they're kinda building a universe. But,
Ooh, I
yeah,
hope
this
so.
guy is, like, he's fighting for his Tia, and, like, he, like, is yelling these things, like, he's yelling it's very religious because he's yelling the,
Oh yeah.
4 horsemen, and you see it, and he's yelling it in Spanish, and he's talking about, death and war, and, you see all that, and it's very passionate for him. So when he fights, he's not just fighting to win, he's fighting for his aunt, and it's
It's him.
passionate,
It's
and
his life.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And while
he's
all
always
this,
been underestimated, and he will prove
because
you
he's
wrong.
small and he does prove everybody wrong. He kicks a lot of ass, and I love his character.
And the artwork
Um,
with him fighting,
you get the
there's
backstory of
multiple
him.
pages.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they don't even need words, and you just see the artwork,
No,
and
and so El Santismo taught him the way. He was a Mexican wrestler when he was growing up, and that's who he really looked up to.
is that a
Um,
real one?
it's not a real one. It's just for the comics,
Oh,
but that's what it was. And then but world leaders currently are also meeting and offering like their wrestlers. So you get kind of like a Iron Hussein from Iran, I think it was, and he's like a play on Iron Sheik, and all mayhem breaks out because you got a lot of these egotistical wrestlers. They're in there like, I'm the best. No, I'm the
they're all
best. And so they
egotistical,
all
yeah.
start to fight each other.
Nothing goes
It's
over my head. I'm too
hilarious.
fast.
Yeah. And then but the whole time, like the aliens, they really want a guy named Sonny Jim. They want him to take the title and overthrow Manifest Destiny. And so it turns out like they bribe Dick to keep it so that Rory doesn't show up, so that way Sonny Jim can come in and take the title. And this leads us to issue 4, which is Road Games, where Rory, Don, and Macho, they've been attacked. They end up in a town where they have to wrestle. Well, call back to Rory's old girlfriend, Linda.
But you don't know she's a girlfriend right away
No, you don't right away, but Linda and
because it
her
was a
crew.
professional and a pleasure relationship.
Yeah. So 3D, who remind me of the Dudley Boys. If anybody who's a wrestling fan knows who the Dudley Boys are, that's who they remind me of. They used to say 3D. And so
Oh,
Linda
so
and
they
that
must have been
crew,
going for that.
yeah, Linda and their
Oh.
crew show up. They beat the wrestlers, and then they embark on a road trip. And pretty much Linda explains to Rory what actually is happening on. They're playing video games in the back there in the van, and you
Yeah.
see it's hilarious. Like Rory's like this junky character in the game.
Right. They're playing like a wrestling game that he's
Yeah.
in
And so he jumps up front with Linda, and they have it out a little bit like, "Hey, I know you're still mad at me," all that kind of stuff. And
because he
Linda's,
dicked over her professional
yeah,
relationship.
he just like left and didn't tell her. She had no idea. And so they end up then at a dudes club. So it's hilarious. They go to this strip club, but it turns out to
Oh,
be a
they
bunch
think
of,
it's going to be naked ladies.
yeah, except for it's like a bunch of dudes who come out and they're like, "Oh, we need to leave." And then of course they
We
get
just
ambushed again.
But right before that, though, you see all these Wrestletopian aliens because now we're at Christmas time, and because it's 1999, they're talking about Y2K. It's almost the year
Yep.
2000, but there's actual Wrestletopian aliens beating up a mall Santa.
Yeah, there is. Yes. So like the Wrestletopians are just running around everywhere and beating people up. And it's hilarious. It's great. Again, the
They do
artwork
a
is
great
great.
job at telling the story, moving the story over, giving you Easter eggs, and at the same time poking fun at themselves.
Yeah, it doesn't take this whole comic book does not take themselves too seriously. They really lean into like the hilariousness of the wrestling world, right? Like it's just all hilarious. It's they don't take themselves seriously. It's the biggest thing. And so Rory ends up leaving, and he hitchhikes. But then it turns out that the hitchhiker, the person that the trucker he hitchhikes with, is a bad guy, and the truck explodes. Linda and them escape the grasp of some Wrestletopians, and they see the explosion happen.
A lot of good coincidences here.
Lots of good coincidences, yes. And so that leads us to issue 5, which is Show Me State of Mind, where
Show me. That's a good. Was Jerry Maguire in the 90s? Show me
I
the
think it
money. Show
was. It
me state of
was.
mind.
It reminds me a lot. I don't know why I think of New York State of Mind from Alicia Keys or
Oh,
whoever.
okay.
Yeah, so
That
that's what.
makes sense.
But anyways, Drassen offers Rory to be
But
the world champ of the Earth.
this
So
whole time, we
Roy,
should say he's trying to get up to what, Minnesota, to go fight
oh, I
this.
am so sorry. You're right. Yes, they're going to St. Paul, Minnesota, where the Galacto Massacre is going to be held, and that's where
So that's why
Rory
he's
is
trying
set
to
to face
hitch a
off.
ride with Linda
Yes,
and then this trucker.
they are
But
heading to
does
St. Paul.
at this point though, does he? I feel like he
He
still doesn't fully understand
still
what's happening.
he kind of does, but at the same he doesn't. Drassen offers him to be world champion for life, and if he doesn't show up to the Galacto Massacre. And this kind of reminds me of the Die Hard scene where he's sitting in there with all the bad guys, right? And he's like, "What are you doing? No, what are you doing?" And then they shoot him. I am blanking on his name. Anyways, he in
Oh,
Die
the
Hard,
douche guy
yeah, the douchey guy from Die Hard. He's sitting in there with the bad guy schmoozing, right?
that asks
And
for a soda.
yeah, and then he ends up dying. Although Drassen doesn't end up
We all
dying
wanted him
here.
to die.
However, it reminded me of Die Hard a little bit, in where he's just like kind of schmooze. And I think that's really when Rory realizes, like, no, what the hell's going on here? This isn't right. And so he takes a look at the belt. He escapes the truck.
Harry Ellis. I literally just Googled
Yes,
douchebag
yes.
from Die Hard and it came up Harry Ellis.
So you get 3D Dawn and Linda escape. Rory escapes the truck. And this is where Dominatrix and the Freak, and it's a play on BDSM, all that.
And they're both Wrestletopians.
They're Wrestletopians. They find Rory and they kind of duke it out. Rory finds Jay, and like before Dominatrix and the Freak go to find Rory, um, Rory ends up like walking through. He finds Jay Warcloud, who is Don's mentor, who he mentioned taking him to, and he tricks him eating peyote, and he goes on a really wicked trip. And
Yeah, he's to this to Rory though, he's just some random Native American
yeah,
chilling in
just in the
like
the
the
middle of
fields.
the
He's like,
desert.
"Here, have a sandwich." And he's like, "Oh man, thanks for the
Once
sandwich." And then he
again, it
starts
reminds me
tripping.
of like every 90s movie where like it's that story where they just find that random Native American where they go on a crazy trip.
You
And
gotta love in the 90s too when like somebody would try weed and they would hallucinate. It was like
oh
there was
yeah,
something
people had
laced in that
no
thing. That's not
idea.
how weed works.
And so they go to like Egomania, and it's basically just Rory battling different
Himself.
wrestlers. He's battling himself, and it kind of
He's
reminds me of like,
fighting Linda.
yeah,
Oh,
it
and then
reminds
his dad too. He's fighting the one dude, and then he takes the mask off, and it's his
yeah. It
dad. I
makes me
mean,
think
there's
of
some
Luke
deep seated shit
Skywalker
there.
seeing Darth Vader in that tree on Dagobah. That's what
Oof.
I got of. And anyways, I really liked Liquid Courage because he was a guy who was drinking out of a keg and would beat you with the keg. From that whole Egomania trip, that was my favorite character.
Mm.
And then Rory beats his dad in the trip, and then
But he
Rory
doesn't know
almost
it's his dad until
no,
he
he has
takes
no
the mask
idea. He
off.
takes the mask off, and then Rory almost gets hit by the gang who's driving on the road. They find him.
Another fabulous coincidence.
Yes, and that's when
But
the
the
freak.
RV, and Linda even said, if we don't pull over soon, this RV is going to overheat and we're not going to have a chance. And the
Yeah,
RV did overheat.
it overheats, of course, and this is when the freak and Dominatrix they ambush 3D Rory, Linda.
Well, they jumped a train
They jumped a train. You're right. I'm getting ahead of myself. They jumped a
and they
train.
get attacked.
And
And
they get
then,
attacked.
okay, so one of the things, and I actually even said this on our most recent episode with Old Man Logan, I love the little extra additions they put at the end of the comics where they do obituaries and
Oh
different
yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So they actually did this at the end of every issue. There's something, it might be an obituary, it might be an advertisement. So they do things to kind of expand the universe and get you a little bit more involved and kind of get you to better understand um,
Yes,
just everything that's going on.
they do.
And I will say again, it's the 90s. And so I think they're being true to the 90s and calling out a lot of racist and misogynistic things that we're
Oh
not doing
yeah.
anymore. Because it's weird to think that the 90s was 20. 22 years ago, but
Oh my
apparently it
God.
was.
Don't do this to
But
me.
there,
I'm not having a crisis right now. I'm not doing it.
dude, I'm older than you. Get it together.
I'm not doing
So
it.
there is a story and an advertisement at the end of issue 5, and they actually refer to somebody as an Oriental. I'm just gonna leave it at
Yeah.
that.
So it's crazy. And so what I really liked about this issue is the fight scene on the train. It made me think of like Zorro, just really classic old school action
When you
movie
got
kind of thing.
backstabbing and
Oh
all
yeah.
sorts of stuff going on and tying him up and yeah.
It was great. And so
But
at the end,
then,
ooh,
oh, maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself actually.
yeah, so it kind of ends where that they kind of get taken
To
hostage.
the Galacto Massacre. I
And
think
this
I did
takes
jump
us
ahead
to
of
the
myself.
final issue, which is Galacto Massacre. And
We start with Bill and Hillary are at the match, and so is the
yes,
Pope,
yes, the
along with
Pope is
other
at the
world
match.
leaders. But I did love seeing because I'm like, is that who I think it is? And then I start reading. I'm like, oh, it is Bill and Hillary.
Backing up. So yeah, so it is Bill and Harry, the Pope's there. And then Rory gets loose because 3D Linda,
Well,
he's
they
like,
start
just leave.
but they start the thing, and Rory's not there. He's still tied up.
Yes. The whole thing started.
So it's happening at the same time.
And it reminds me of old school WrestleManias, right? Like you have all the stars there. It's like modern day UFC, but it's old school WrestleManias. Everything's happening in real time. And Linda, it turns out he's like, just go. This is what all that kind of stuff. So she leaves, and 3D they pop in, and Rory gets free. He fights Dominatrix, where he makes her quit. And this is when the Freak actually joins them and becomes the third member of 3D because they lost their third member a long time ago. He just
To
kind of outgrew the
accounting.
crew. Yes, he became an accountant, outgrew it.
Maybe
And
it was Lucky.
oh,
Shout
maybe.
out to Lucky.
But I love that just because like they found their third member and he happens to be part of the alien, and it was great. And oh no, I am so sorry. I got a little ahead of myself. There's a big death. There's a big death. Dawn
Oh
dies
yeah.
after falling
The
off the
agent.
train,
It's
and
like his
Rory
manager,
jumped
his
after
agent, his
him.
best
Dawn,
friend.
yes. And this whole time, the whole thing behind the scenes is there's another extra guy with them who's kind of like your Doug Dimmadome, who, if anybody who's Family Odd Parents, that's who that is. He's like this cowboy kind of guy. Well, he is the guy behind trying to keep Rory from getting to St. Paul. Well, Don dies. He snaps his neck after falling off the train. Pretty sad. Linda's like, I'm sorry. Rory says, leave. Fight breaks
There is
out.
more going on because there is a group of aliens that are trying to keep Rory from getting to this because they want to
Yes.
defeat Manifest Destiny.
There
There's a
is,
lot
yeah.
going on.
So 3D, they save Rory with the Freak, whose new name is DeAndre. And also at the same time, Macho, Minnie Macho, he's at
Again, my
Galacto
favorite.
Massacre, and he's basically buying Rory time, and so he pops up as the
He's
match.
like, Viva!
They're getting ready to start the match, and this is when he pops out, and it's funny because like he what's his name, Dick, just kneels so that Macho can hear him. And he's like, I appreciate you for kneeling down to me. And I was just like, dude, what
Now
the
I
fuck?
can kick your ass.
It's hilarious. And then yeah, so Macho buys time. Essentially, Rory had gotten free in the real time, and just as all is lost, Rory shows up, and it reminds me of like American Badass Undertaker. So there was a time when the Dead Man became like, he rolled out to Kid Rock's I Am an American Badass, and he came out on the motorcycle, right? Well, Rock and Roll Rory Landell is his name, and he shows up.
Oh, we didn't even say that before.
No.
Yes, rock and roll, Rory Landell. We need to say that again.
He shows up, the crowd pops, I popped, I'm on my couch like, let's go, here we are.
Let's go, brother.
Let's go, brothers. You're in it. This is wrestling. This is just good old-fashioned wrestling, brothers. All right, listen to me. Rory shows up. He lays a dope-ass promo where he's just basically like, I'm the greatest there is. Screw you guys. And this is when Manifest Destiny, the champion,
The ultimate
his music hits.
alien galactic champion.
And real quick, is it Manifest Destiny or is it Zorg from Toy Story? Because there was some talk. But
at first I'm like, no, it's Manifest Destiny. And then you went the whole, it was
yes,
Zurg. The evil emperor
right.
Zurg,
Yes,
you uncultured
Zurg.
swine.
Anyways, you get to the ring and just like
It starts popping tennis balls at him. Pop, 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 pop.
this is when the wrestling match really gets going. So they get started and they exchange chops, which chops are real. In wrestling, if you get chopped, like I've seen guys' chests, like Daniel Bryan's chest after.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Tim and
they're
Ryan used to do that. And they would
yeah,
chop each other.
they
I
chop
didn't know
each
that
other.
was a
That shit
wrestling
hurts.
thing.
This is how like they either start with
Oh,
the
poor
headlocks
Ryan.
or the chops. You know, this has all the makings of a classic match. I love it. You get leg drops, you get flying elbows, you get clotheslines. It is intense. They're bouncing off the ropes. And then you even get when Rory gets tossed over the ropes, you get the classic injury. There's always an injury that they play up in wrestling. Like somebody gets,
Mm.
oh, his knee is hurt, which in this
But
case
you see
obviously
that
it's
even
Rory's knee.
realistic though too. Like Dwayne Wade though, it's like his knee was always terrible, and when they drained his knee, he was
It's just
amazing.
the making of a
So
great sports story
we're
that
not wrestle
somebody's getting
aliens. He's
injured.
human. I feel like it gave Rory that human element though to the
Yeah,
fight, as to like he's not an actual Wrestletopian alien. He is human and
he is
he's
human.
defending
He's
Earth.
out there, like he's old at this point.
Gotta
So he's been around
humanize
for like
your
20
heroes.
years. He's been around for 20 years. He's old at this point.
Hmm.
And he gets hurt. And so,
Yeah, I don't think we put enough emphasis on that though. He was a huge wrestling star, and of course, he kind of shot himself in the foot
yeah,
metaphorically, became a has been, and then yeah, that's why you got to
ex-
read it, folks.
exactly. You got to read it because they give better detail than we do. Rory pops back in. He really beats down Manifest. He has him for the 3 count. But what happens? You get a 2 count at the last second. Manifest Destiny pops out. The crowd is in disbelief. You get then all of a sudden the tables turn. Rory's getting, and he's in a headlock. And this is when, if anybody has
Just slam
watched,
my table.
oh my god, if anybody has watched Hulk Hogan, you know exactly what the fuck is happening next. You get the classic arm drops where you're getting choked out. They raise your arm 1, they raise your arm 2. This is when he goes into the flashback, or it's not even a
Oh, that's
flashback.
what that is. And if your arm just
He's
falls, you're out.
If it falls on 3, you're out. So you're knocked out,
But if you
right?
hold it up, you're not.
Oh, yes. So he's in like this. He
Oh,
sees Don, his manager, who's dead, but he's basically like, "Man, we ain't got time for all this talking. I loved you. I always
right.
saw
I feel
something
like he
in
died
you."
for a second and came back
Yeah, he's like, "I loved you.
because
I
he
always
sees the
appreciate
turkey
you."
farmer too. Which, if you read it, then you understand who the turkey farmer
Exactly.
is.
And so as the referee raises Rory's arm, drops it down for 3, what does Hulk Hogan always do? It stops halfway and he starts hulking out, brothers. He starts shaking. This is what we call classic hulking out. He's shaking, he gets up, the crowd is popping. It's Hulkamania time. He breaks out of the headlock and he's
Fist his
about to
shirt.
he's about to end Manifest Destiny. Manifest Destiny is toast. However, when he's lifting him up for the final power bomb, his knee buckles and Rory
Just like
falls.
Dwayne Wade. I get it. I get
Manifest
it.
Destiny falls
I
on
love
top of
Dwayne Wade.
Rory in a 1-2-3 count. I wasn't expecting this twist. It was a really great twist. Manifest Destiny wins. He retains the belt. However,
Did not
Jimmy
see that
comes
happening.
out and turns on Destiny. So he's beaten, him and his crew are
But
beating
these
on
are the
Destiny.
other aliens, though, that
Yes,
didn't want
they're the ones who wanted to
him to
take the
take
belt from
over,
Manifest Destiny.
trying to
And this is
usurp
when
that crown.
Rory is back on his feet. He jumps in on Destiny's side, and Linda even jumps in. You get the classic,
Oh,
man. So
Linda jumping on
they always had like
hardcore
the female
because she
manager.
betrayed him. Did we go into her
Yes,
betraying him?
she betrayed
Okay,
him more or less. Yes, and we
but
kind of
he
glossed
betrayed her to
over
begin
it.
with, and
Yeah, and so she's basically leave me. She does, but Linda
she was
pops in.
warranted in her actions.
She does the whole "I'm going to interfere in this," and then she runs around the ring. It's a classic bit in wrestling. And so that happens, and then she super kicks one of them. Destiny beats Sunny
Yeah,
Jim, and everything is good. And at the end, you get Manifest basically like, you know what? You earned my respect. I'm not taking over Earth. You're cool with me, basically. Linda and Rory get back
but
to.
he's like, I'm still the champ,
Oh yeah, he
so
says
you
I'm
can
the
have
champ.
Earth.
But you know what? Earth is yours. I'm not taking over this. Linda and Rory get back together, and that's kind of the end of it. And all in all, man,
But
I love this
shout
comic.
out to Rory's mom, though, who's at the trailer park watching her son on the TV, and she's so happy because her son
She
did so
is.
good.
Her son finally lived up. He made his mom proud. Dad was a
Teardrop
deadbeat.
from my eye.
And this comic book, as we wrap this up, it was amazing. I
I'm
really enjoyed
again
this.
gonna throw some emphasis on the art.
The art was
I
there's a lot of colors.
love the art.
The
I mean,
colors
maybe
pop.
because yeah. And again, even if you're not a wrestling fan, the story's great. The story's
It
funny.
is.
The story's
It doesn't take itself seriously, and that's what you love about old school wrestling. That's what you
right,
love about
but
like
it's still a
90s
good
disaster movies.
story.
Yeah, and it's still a good story. There's redemption. There's, oh my God, your mentor
There's
dies,
love. There's
and
blood.
it makes you
Everybody's
really,
mentor dies.
really nostalgic for
Miyagi
old
Do.
school wrestling. Yes, Miyagi, rest in peace, good friend. And I
The
loved it.
artwork was I mean, this artwork was better than some like Marvel shit I read. I mean,
Yeah,
the artwork was absolutely amazing.
it was. I hope
The
there's more.
artwork told the story on multiple pages. It moved, and that's one of the things I think I've even seen. And I know we've talked on our show about, the behind the scenes shows on Disney Plus nowadays, and they go into how important the artwork is and how it can move the story forward. They did a phenomenal job in this. I mean, the whole scene where we're talking about the little dude, Macho, they moved that story forward
They
beautifully
really
on
did.
multiple pages with just amazing artwork. And anybody who's
Yes.
read a comic knows there's an occasional thing where it's like, well, that looks a little awkward. I didn't get that at all from this. I thought
No, I
every
didn't either.
single piece, and I honestly, like, there was at one point I'm like scroll because I was reading it on the computer where I was going too fast, and I actually went back up because I wanted to give appreciation to the effort that was put in to the artwork, because I was like, I know somebody took time to make this page absolutely beautiful, and they did that with the story and the dialogue as well. But I don't know, my favorite was the artwork. It was gorgeous.
It was great. I loved, like I said, it made me so nostalgic for old school wrestling, the artwork, everything about it.
The colors, yeah.
I really appreciate you guys reaching out to us, Ed. Thank you for sending us this
Yes, and
way.
giving us this opportunity.
I would not have found it. I probably wouldn't have. And like we mentioned at
Oh,
the
I
beginning of the
definitely wouldn't
show,
have.
in May there will be a Kickstarter, and I hope I'm gonna reach out. I hope that we can have the creators of this comic book on to discuss this
That'd be
further.
awesome. Yeah.
And this is our first big comic interview, and we're gonna have you guys on hopefully around when the Kickstarter kicks off, and really get this made in a trade, because this is something that I want a physical copy of. I I don't know how we can do it. I don't care how we do it. I really want to hold in my hands a physical copy of this comic book because the artwork is that phenomenal.
It
And
is gorgeous. Yeah,
look,
and we'll push some of the digital images on
we
the
will.
Twitter and the Instagram when we promote this episode, so you can get
We'll be
a taste of it. And we'll put the links to where you can find it.
Yeah, it's on Comixology. Find it there. We're gonna push out the artwork. Go find it. Find it. Help these guys get this made into a real physical copy, because they put a lot of time, they put a lot of effort, and it really shows, and it's fantastic. I wouldn't say this if I didn't like it. Just get out there, find it, read it, let them know. Let them know that you enjoyed it, and let's make this become a reality. And other than that, thank you. Just thank you again. I feel really humble. It's really nice. Find us, Hops Geek News. We will have issues out, and hopefully we will have more comic book reviews coming soon, because I
Okay.
always appreciate finding new comic books. I know Lauren does as well, and
Hmm.
we'll be chatting it up and reviewing some comic books. Let us know if there's any comic books you want to get reviewed by us. And thank you for listening.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers, brothers.
This has been a Hops News production. You can find Hops News on all your favorite podcasts and social media platforms at Hops News. Cheers.